Alright, what is going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of MGC. Today, as you can see from the smile of my face, I'm loving it because I'm with, finally, the Land Cruiser 300 series. I've been wanting to check this car out for some time now, and as you can see, I finally got it with me here. So, super happy, super pleased, and this is actually the 3.3 liter diesel engine. As you can see from the looks, as we just glance at this car, seeing it on picture and seeing it on video is definitely not the same as seeing it in person. In person, it just looks a lot more grand, a lot bigger, and very, very sort of large frontage here. Very squarish as well, so it looks very squarish in the front, very imposing, and that shocked me a lot compared to the pictures of it. I really like the front end of the 300 series. So this is the 3.3 liter diesel. As you guys know, with the 300 series they moved from the V8 engine that we got in the 200 series and we came to the 3.5 liter V6 petrol, and then we had this 3.3 liter V6 diesel engine. Now this engine is actually outperforms the V8 diesel engine, and the petrol version that they made also outperforms the V8 petrol. So I'm going to take you on a tour of this vehicle today. I've just driven it a bit, so I have a few impressions that I can give you. We can't take it out too much because this particular example just has 250 kilometers on it, and it's the only example here at Ace Prestige Motors here on Kiambu Road. So I'm loving the looks of this vehicle. As you can see from the 200 series, this is a totally redesigned vehicle, so it completely changes. As you can just come with me as we go around, this vehicle totally changes from the 200 series in terms of the chassis, everything. It's still built on a ladder frame, so this is still our true Land Cruiser 4x4, the way we like it. It's got the solid axle in the rear, but this has got a totally redesigned suspension, and it's got a totally redesigned body. Everything is new for the Land Cruiser 300 series, and this comes from a long line of heritage vehicles. You guys know, with the Land Cruiser lines, we went from the 60 to the 62, even the 40 series, and then the 80 series, 100 series, 200 series, and 300 series. And each version, like this is a 300 series, but the 200 series first came out in 2008, and so it lasts quite a long time. The last 200 series was in 2021. So as you can see, each nameplate, each series runs for a long amount of years, and Toyota then updates it. So this is the brand new version, and I love it. As you can see, with the redesigned grille, you got all your radar and new technology within the badge. You can see the design of the headlights, kind of like the previous LX, and that's usually what they do with the Land Cruisers as well. The best features that they had of the LX, the top tier versions, they make it down to the top line Land Cruiser versions as well. So why don't we go inside as well, show you the interior, show you what I like, show you what's different with this vehicle. Come on. Alright guys, now we come to the rear of the 300 series. This is something that I was very iffy about when this vehicle first came out, because I personally have an 80 series and a 100 series. I personally think the 100 series had one of the best rear ends of all time. And when this thing came out, it's very straight, very sort of Prado-like, with this long tail, and the sort of headlights that feed into that long tail. But looking at it in person, it doesn't look too bad, but I would still say I think the 200 series rear end is better, and the 100 series is better as well. So it's alright. But the biggest change we have here is we lost the split tailgate, which is something I was really upset about when this vehicle came out. The split tailgate is something I love with Land Cruisers, especially if you're in Africa, if you're in Kenya, if you're doing the safaris and you actually use a split tailgate for what it's for. You're in the bundus and you open your tailgate, put some drinks on it, or use it for some other purposes. You'll just love it and never want to go back. But this particular vehicle, as you can see, we lost the tailgate, and we get this huge trunk opening, automatic of course, with everything these days. And that's neat. That's neat and nice. And they did give a platform here, so it's almost kind of like a split tailgate, but it's definitely not. But I'll admit, on a hot day like this, it's nice to have this. This is almost like a canopy. It's quite big, And the one thing about the 300 is you get a lot of trunk space. They lost the split tailgate, but you do get a lot of trunk space because the rear seats are no longer attached over here. As you can see, the rear seats come out from the ground, and then you have a few neat other things. So that's it for the rear of this vehicle. I'll just close that. I hate beeps, and it's got a lot of beeps, so I hope there's a way to turn that off. But this is a ZX version, as you can see. So with the Land Cruiser badging from the 200 series, they moved to this kind of badging. So if it's a ZX, you know it is the top spec version. So this doesn't have a coil suspension. This has a KDSS hydraulic suspension version, like the A8C system. So why don't we check on the interior, and then I'll tell you some of the things that they did different with this particular vehicle. Come on in. Alright guys, so now we come towards the interior of this Land Cruiser 300 series. When I first got into this, it really felt very, very nice. But there are a few things that I would mention now that I've sort of played with it a bit. But as you can see, the first things is I really love the doors. This piece that hangs out like this, and the way the doors are laid out. But it's not like you get super premium materials. Honestly, I will compare this vehicle to my Land Cruiser Cygnus one day, and I'll show you the difference in materials, because this doesn't impress me that much, but I like the way this door has been done. As you can see from this 300 series, it's moved a lot from the 200 series. The 200 series, they had the sort of the round dials here, but they've opened these dials up for us, and so it's a more open layout. But I will admit, number one, the speedometer looks smaller than the 200 series and the 100 series. That's a negative for me. I like the big sort of spread out dials and you know, easily viewable. The steering wheel is standard Toyota. It looks good, but you'll find this in the latest Corolla, you'll find this in the latest whatever Toyota. So some of the stuff, you know, it's to be expected. And the problem is, I'm reviewing this vehicle based on the fact that I know it's 26 million shillings, I think, so about $220,000 at the time of viewing this video. So that in itself is quite crazy, and that's because of our duties. So very expensive vehicle, and I'm trying to look at the material choices based on that. But the new layout of the interior, I really like it. I think they've done it well, and it looks really gorgeous. Alright guys, so now I want to get in the vehicle and show you the kind of space, because I don't think it's that much. Now, I am a Land Cruiser owner, so coming from someone who's driven, I mean, owns an 80, owns a 100, and has driven plenty of 200 series, this vehicle doesn't have enough headroom. It doesn't have as much headroom as I would expect. I mean, I can see what Toyota has done. They've definitely changed the full driving position of this vehicle, and I know while they built this vehicle, they said that's what they wanted to do. They wanted to revitalize how it felt being in this cabin, so that when you're on very long journeys, it feels very smooth. So this thing has totally been changed. You still sit high up, but it feels like you're almost sitting on a pedestal, and you just glide over all the kilometers. But I definitely wish there was still more headroom, because this seat, if I adjust it very low, then I feel like I'm sort of sitting very low in this vehicle, and still the headroom is not a lot. And if I go in the higher positions, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, in my Cygnus, when I'm on these higher positions, my head is not touching the ceiling like this. There's still more space. So that's one thing I've noticed. But it's a nice place to be. You got a center compartment. You don't have a fridge in this center compartment. You got a 10-speed transmission in this 300 series, and so it's very smooth, very refined. Alright guys, so we're in front of this vehicle now. As you can see, the new V6 engine. This is of course the 3.3 liter twin turbo V6 diesel. So it has a lot of torque. It's a totally redesigned engine. As you can see, much smaller. You can see all this frontage. The engine fits in a much smaller area, so all this is just crumple zone. Big coolant reservoir in the front is what I can notice as some differences. But yeah, this is the redesigned engine and what you get when you move up to the 300 series. So alright guys, so as you know, with my videos I like to take you through exactly how the car feels. So wide angle, here we are. Start stop button has moved from where the 200 series one, which is somewhere down here, to up here. That's how the dials look. Press on the brake. And that's the start of our 3.3 liter diesel. Big heads-up display, very loud beeping. You can see this 360 display, so you can see the vehicle. I love the sound of this diesel. It's like winds up. I think those are the turbos spooling. Yeah, so this vehicle is very easily maneuverable. I can see from the heads-up display, I can see from the sort of the 360. So yeah, that's pretty good. Alright guys, so now just gonna take off on a short stretch of road. I give you my impressions. Initially, the first things I can tell you is this steering has been totally redesigned. It doesn't feel at all like previous steering wheels. I can't feel the wheels at all. There's no connection to the road. So this has been totally redesigned, and this is what Toyota said they wanted to do, so that you get a completely different feel, because previous Land Cruiser steering wheels are much more involved, but this thing, it's like the 80 series actually, exactly what they said they based this vehicle off. So let's just put it in drive, give you a bit of my driving impressions. We're in a bit of rocks right now. The car still feels pretty smooth given that we're running on quite big rims, but definitely the steering is the number one new thing that I'm feeling. So, and then go over a little bump. So you still know this is a solid axle vehicle. You know, it's not too different in that aspect. But I will say straight away, the sound insulation is amazing. As soon as I closed these windows, everything just went silent, even the diesel. You can just hear it in the background. And this vehicle is supposed to be very efficient. You're supposed to be able to get up to 10, 11 kilometers a liter from this diesel, and about 8 kilometers a liter average with the 3.5 liter. Whew. Yeah, it has a lot of torque. Learn how this thing works together, because we need some AC going, and I don't know how this functions. All right, that looks like putting the AC up. Right, there we go. Cold blowing AC. There's a dial here. I'm just going to turn this a bit down. It's a very hot day today in Kenya, but there's a dial here that has mode select, and I've got modes that start turning up on my dial. So let me just show you that. So as soon as you start switching through the modes, you got a few drive modes: normal, sports, sport plus, you got comfort, and you got eco, which is quite good. So as you can see, the mileage on this vehicle is very low. But what these modes would do is just change the dynamics of the suspension, you know, whether it's a bit more rigid for the sports or a bit softer for the comfort modes. And then you do have downhill assist control. All right guys, I'll just take you through something I noticed quickly with this particular vehicle. Everything they've done, Toyota said that they've redesigned a bunch of things, going from the 200 series to the 300 series, and that was to do a lot with suspension and how this vehicle drove. Because the Toyota CEO said that when he took the 200 series across Australia, it was not extremely, but it started to get quite rough after like thousands of kilometers. Just the seating position and the overall feeling of driving the 200 series felt like a truck. You're constantly involved with the steering wheel, and I can attest to that with the 100 series and the 80 series. They do feel similar, but with this vehicle they changed all that, and I mentioned that with the differences I felt with the steering wheel, but also the differences with the tires. They moved from what is a standard size of 275/60/18 to a 265 tire, which is almost a Prado size. It's actually a much smaller size. So the stock size on the 300 series right now is a 265/55/20. So you don't get a lot of tire depth. They're going for the bigger rims. So as soon as when I drove this vehicle, I didn't necessarily feel like it was super smooth or super luxurious. I would love to compare this to my Cygnus. I definitely think my Cygnus almost feels smoother with that hydraulic suspension. So I'm not so sure Toyota went for smoothness, but more ruggedness and feel, since they based this of how the 80 series performed off-road. Let's check out this suspension, and just from my first looks on it, what I can see, you can see they've gone for the McPherson struts. So the strut is within the coil, and then you got these fat control arms. But a lot of the stuff that happened with the 300 series is they moved from the solid steel parts to aluminium. So this vehicle, the way it achieves the good fuel economy as well, is that there's a lot of fuel saving that happens because of weight reduction. This vehicle is much lighter than the 200 series and the 100 series, and that's because we've gone to aluminium. So not everything is steel. This is aluminium. Many of the body panels have switched to aluminium. Alright guys, so we're in the rear seat of this vehicle. First of all, I just want to give my final remarks, but just before I do that, I wanted to mention again, I have a problem with the headroom. I'm not feeling like there's enough headroom in the rear seats of a Land Cruiser. You should get more than this. My head shouldn't be touching immediately. I think Toyota nailed it with the looks. I really love how this vehicle looks. But time will only tell how this vehicle ages and how it does. Everything is still brand new at this point, but I think the diesel engine feels great, sounds great, got plenty of performance. Toyota have been making engines for years, so not like they're going to mess it up per se. The fuel economy is great. The movement to aluminium body panels was to be expected. That's just something that's happening and has happened with the European manufacturers a long time ago. The fit and finish is good, but I still think that Toyota uses too much plastic and too much of these kind of vinyl materials, whereas they should be using good, nice smelling leather and better choice of materials. You know, this is not real wood or real materials, but overall I think I really like the vehicle. Coming from a Land Cruiser guy's perspective, all I can say is from that perspective, and from that I really like how it feels. I'm glad to have reviewed this, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video as we go through this vehicle. I'm sorry it was probably a bit of a longer video, but I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit like, subscribe, comment.